I'm Diana Price. I'm 68 years old. For 40 years, I lived with my phone glued to my hip, terrified of missing a call from my family. I thought being constantly on call made me a good wife to Mike, a good mother, a good grandmother to my 9 grandkids. It nearly broke me. Let me tell you what happened. You see, I regret that I made myself available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I believed that was the ultimate expression of love. But it cost me my own sense of self. It cost me my quiet hobbies, and it nearly cost me my marriage, because I had nothing left to give Mike or myself but exhaustion. Here's the thing I understand now. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Let me explain. It started last spring. My son and his wife both began new, demanding jobs. And listen, I was happy to help. That's what family does. But the requests for help, school pickups, last-minute babysitting, the "can you just," they went from a steady stream to a flood. My calendar, which I used to keep for my garden plans or a hike with Mike, became a mosaic of their needs. My own life started to feel like it was happening in the margins. I remember one perfect May morning. I was finally transplanting my heirloom tomatoes, my hands in the warm earth. It was quiet. It was just me and the dirt. Then the phone rang. It was my grandson's school. He was sick. I dropped my trowel, dirt still under my nails, and I drove 45 minutes to get him. I stayed with him until his parents could get home. When I finally returned hours later, the sun was brutal. Those tender tomato plants I'd been so careful with had completely wilted in their little pots. They were just done. I stood there in my garden and I cried. That was a loss I could see. The other losses were quieter, but Mike saw them. Mike had planned a special dinner for us not long after that, a date night at home. He'd made my favorite meal. We were actually talking, you know, really talking. My phone buzzed during dessert, a video call from the grandkids. I took it, of course. What was I supposed to do? Ignore them? I spent 20 minutes making silly faces at the screen while Mike sat there. When I finally hung up, the moment was gone. He had silently cleared both our plates away. He just looked at me and said, "You're not here, Di, even when you are." His words sat with me. They hurt. But I didn't know how to change. The machine just kept running. The real crisis, though, it wasn't a big fight. It was a Tuesday. I'd done 3 separate drives for various family needs that day. I came home and I was just empty, a shell. Mike was in the living room. He didn't say anything. He just got up, went to the closet, and handed me my old guitar. It was dusty. He said, "Play something. For you. Just 5 minutes." I tried. I really did. But my fingers were stiff. I fumbled the chords to Blackbird, a song I'd known for 50 years. I couldn't remember the bridge. The silence after I put the guitar down was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. That silence was my wake-up call. I wasn't living. I was in a state of perpetual service. I'd lost a part of myself, and I didn't even know when it had slipped away. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with Mike and my calendar. My hands were shaking. I took a red pen, and right in front of him, I blocked out every Wednesday. "This is mine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. No calls, no favors, just me. He didn't argue. He didn't look disappointed. He just put his hand over mine and said, "It's about time." Then came the harder part, telling my son. I waited until that evening after dinner. I sat at the same kitchen table, the one with the scratch from when my grandson dropped a toy truck on it years ago, and I called him. My heart was pounding. I told him I loved him and the kids more than anything in this world, but that I was taking Wednesdays for myself from now on. There was this long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the TV in the background at his house. He was confused. "Wednesdays? For what?" he asked. Then he got concerned. "Are you feeling okay, Mom? Is everything all right with you and Dad?" I had to explain that I was just feeling stretched too thin, that I needed some time to recharge so I could be a better Nana when I was with them. I promised I'd still be there, just not at a moment's notice. It was awkward. It felt so selfish coming out of my mouth. He said, "Okay, sure, Mom, whatever you need." But his voice was flat. He didn't understand. Hanging up, I felt like I just announced I was moving to another country. That first Wednesday loomed over me like a storm cloud. I was terrified I'd just sit there the whole day feeling guilty, staring at the phone. Wednesday came. Mike left for his weekly coffee with the guys, giving me a little kiss and a squeeze on the shoulder. I made a cup of tea the way I like it, with a bit of honey, and I went to sit in my garden. The phone was inside on the kitchen counter. For the first hour, I just felt guilty. It was a physical feeling, a tight knot right in the center of my chest. I kept thinking of all the things I should be doing. Maybe my daughter-in-law needed to run an errand. Maybe one of the kids had forgotten a lunch. The silence felt loud and wrong, so I just watched the birds. I noticed the way the light came through the leaves of my maple tree. I felt the sun, really felt it, warm on my skin. After a while, I picked up a book I'd been trying to read for months. I only read a few pages, but I remembered the story. Slowly, that tight knot began to loosen. Just a little. That small piece, that tiny sliver of quiet, gave me a crazy idea. A few Wednesdays later, I packed a lunch, told Mike I'd be back by dinner, and I drove north. I went to the White Mountains, to a short, easy trail I remembered from years ago. I was going on a solo hike. Me, Diana from Northgate, who hadn't done anything alone in decades. My hands were shaky on the steering wheel, but I went. As I walked that trail, with the crunch of pine needles under my boots, and no one needing a single thing from me, I started to remember. I remembered who I was before I was Nana on call. I was Diana, who loves the smell of damp earth and pine, who loves the sound of her own breath matching her steps. I sat on a rock by a little stream and ate my sandwich, and I didn't think about a single appointment or pickup. I just was. I came home that evening, tired in my bones, but full, really full, for the first time in years. Mike took one look at me when I walked in the door and smiled. He said, "There you are. You look like yourself again." And you know what? The world didn't fall apart. My family adjusted. It wasn't overnight. The calls didn't stop, but they changed. Instead of, "Nana, can you come now?" it became, "Hi, Mom. Are you free on Thursday afternoon?" Or, "Is Wednesday still your day?" They started to think about my time. My yes became more valuable because it wasn't automatic. It was a choice. Mike and I started having real conversations again, the kind where you look at each other and actually listen. I picked up my guitar from the closet, dusted it off properly, and started relearning the chords to Blackbird. It was slow. My fingers were still stiff, but each week they remembered a little more. My garden, well, my garden thrived. Those heirloom tomatoes finally got into the ground on my time, and I was there to water them and watch them grow. I learned that my compassion, the thing I thought defined me, needed edges. Without boundaries, it was just a flood that drowned me and left everyone else scrambling on soggy ground. By making my time a free, unlimited resource, I devalued it. I taught everyone that my needs were the emergency exit, always there, never to be used unless everything else was on fire. I taught everyone that my needs were the emergency exit, always there, never to be used unless everything else was on fire. And you know what? They believed me. Why wouldn't they? I'd spent 40 years proving it. But that realization, that quiet Wednesday after my hike, it didn't fix everything. It just showed me the size of the hole I was in. The next part was the hardest. I had to look at what I'd lost, really look at it, and not turn away. It happened on a Thursday. I was supposed to have my grandson Leo for the afternoon. I'd picked him up from school, we'd gotten ice cream, and we were back at my house. He was 7. He wanted to play a board game. We set it up on the kitchen table, and about 5 minutes in, my phone rang. It was my daughter-in-law. Her meeting was running late. Could I possibly keep Leo for dinner? Of course, I said automatically, the old script kicking in. No problem at all. I hung up and looked at Leo. He was happily moving his game piece, and a wave of exhaustion hit me so hard I almost couldn't breathe. It was a school night. That meant making a whole dinner, keeping him entertained, doing the bedtime routine when his parents finally came to get him. My quiet evening with Mike, the one we'd planned to watch a movie, was gone. Just like that. And I had said yes, again. I tried to focus on the game, but I was just going through the motions. I was thinking about defrosting something for dinner, wondering if I had enough of the pasta he liked. I was mentally calculating how long until his parents arrived. Leo looked up at me and said, "Nana, it's your turn." I blinked. "Sorry, sweetheart." He studied my face with those serious 7-year-old eyes. "You're tired," he stated matter-of-factly. "Oh, just a little," I said, forcing a smile. "Mommy says you're always tired," he said, and he went back to studying the board. Those words from him, they went right through me. Mommy says you're always tired. That was my legacy. That was what I had become to my own family. Not the fun Nana, not the adventurous Nana who played guitar. The tired one, the reliable, exhausted one. I got through the evening. I made the pasta. Mike came home and pitched in without a word, but the air between us was heavy with a disappointment we were both too polite to name. After Leo's parents picked him up, full of thanks and apologies, I went to the kitchen to clean up. Mike was already there washing the pots. We didn't speak. The water ran. I wiped the table. And then, I don't know why, I just said it out loud to his back. Leo told me today that his mom says I'm always tired. Mike's shoulders stiffened. He shut off the water. He turned around, leaning against the sink, and looked at me. He didn't look angry. He looked sad. So sad. "Diana," he said, his voice quiet, "you are." "I know," I whispered. "It's not just the babysitting," he said. He wiped his hands on a towel slowly. You're not here. Even when you're with me, you're halfway out the door, waiting for the next call. You haven't played your guitar in a year. You haven't finished a book. We haven't taken a walk, just the two of us, since last fall. Your garden is the only thing you fight for, and even that gets abandoned. He was listing my losses. My own husband was reciting the obituary of my interests. And he was right. I thought I was helping, I said, and my voice cracked. I thought that's what love was. Mike came over and took my hands. They were still damp from the dishcloth. "I know you did," he said. "But Di, loving them doesn't mean disappearing. What are you showing them? That a woman's whole purpose is to burn herself out for everyone else? Is that the lesson for our granddaughters? That their own dreams wilt while they tend everyone else's garden?" I started to cry then. Not the quiet tears from the garden over the tomatoes. This was ugly crying, shoulders shaking, couldn't catch my breath crying. Because he'd named my deepest, quietest fear. I hadn't just lost my hobbies, I'd lost myself. And in losing myself, what kind of example had I been? I was the cautionary tale, not the matriarch. I thought of my mother. She was never tired. She was fierce. She had her own friends, her own projects. She helped, but on her terms, and we respected her for it. Somewhere along the line, I'd decided that being endlessly available was better, nobler, and I'd been wrong. I cried for the hikes I didn't take. I cried for the songs I didn't play. I cried for the conversations with Mike that never happened because I was too drained to speak. I cried for the woman who used to love her life, who now just managed the logistics of other people's. Mike just held me. He didn't say it would be okay. He didn't try to fix it. He just let me feel the full weight of it, the cost, the sheer, stupid, wasteful cost of my 24/7 availability. When the tears finally slowed, I felt hollowed out, empty in a different way. Not the exhausted empty of being used up, but the raw, clean empty of a field after a fire. Nothing was left standing. It was all just ash. And for the first time, I could see the shape of the land again. I pulled back and looked at Mike. "I don't know how to come back from this," I said, my voice raw. He brushed a piece of hair from my forehead. "You already started," he said. "You have Wednesdays." It was such a small thing, one day, but in that moment, it felt like the only solid ground in a world of ash. It was a promise I'd made to myself, and I had kept it. It was proof that I could. The guilt was still there, a dull ache. The fear that I was letting everyone down was still there. But underneath it, for the first time, there was something else, a tiny, fragile spark of anger. Not at my family, at myself, for letting it go this far, for confusing martyrdom with love. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay there and I let myself think about what I wanted. Not what I should do, not what was needed. What I, Diana, wanted. It had been so long since I'd asked that question. The answers were like ghosts. I wanted to play music. I wanted to hike a longer trail. I wanted to sit with Mike and talk about nothing. I wanted to grow my tomatoes and be there to see them ripen. It was a simple list, a human list, and it felt like a rebellion. It was a simple list, a human list, and it felt like a rebellion. That spark of anger, that clean emptiness after the tears, that's where the real change began. It wasn't about Wednesdays anymore. It was about everything else. Here's what I learned, sitting at my kitchen table in Northgate, looking out at my garden at 68 years old. I was wrong about what love required. I thought love meant my time was not my own. I thought being the first call, the reliable one, the one who never said no, was the highest form of devotion. But I was teaching everyone, especially my 9 grandchildren, a terrible lesson. That a woman's time, her passions, her quiet joys were negotiable, that they came last. I saw it in Leo's matter-of-fact statement. "Mommy says you're always tired." I had become a warning, not a haven. That moment with my guitar, that awful silence when the music wouldn't come, taught me something vital. You cannot give what you do not possess. I was trying to pour love from a cup that was not only empty, but cracked. The love became frantic, resentful, thin, a duty, not a gift. Mike was right. By disappearing, I wasn't showing my granddaughters strength. I was showing them depletion. So my advice is this, and it's painfully simple. Put your own important thing on the calendar in ink, not pencil, ink. For me, it started with Wednesdays. For you, it might be Tuesday mornings or Sunday afternoons. It doesn't have to be a whole day. It can be an hour. But guard it like it's a doctor's appointment for your soul, because it is. That time is where you remember how to play, how to be quiet, how to breathe without an agenda. And you have to say the words. You have to practice them in the mirror if you have to. I can't today, but I can help you on Thursday. Say it without a long apology. The apology undermines it. That no is what makes your yes valuable. It's what makes your yes a choice and not just a reflex. When I started saying it, my family was confused. Then they were concerned. And then they adjusted. They started to plan. They started to value my time because I showed them I valued it first. It's not too late. I was 68. I'd been doing this for 40 years. The patterns were deep grooves in my life. If I can learn to step out of those grooves, you can too. You don't need a dramatic crisis. My crisis was a silent guitar. Yours might be a book you never finish, a walk you never take, a song you never sing. Listen to that quiet. That's the sound of a part of you waiting to be reclaimed. This isn't about loving your family less. It's about loving them better, from a place of fullness, not depletion. Now, when I'm with my grandkids, I'm actually with them. I'm not mentally running through a to-do list. I'm on the floor playing the game. I'm present. And my marriage to Mike? We talk. We really talk. We take those walks. The love I give now comes from a well that I tend, not from a puddle I've scraped dry. My story is just one of many shared here by people who've lived a little and learned a lot the hard way. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in my wilted tomatoes or my dusty guitar, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. There are more stories here, more hard-won lessons that might save you some time. And leave a comment down below. Tell me, what's the one thing you'd put on your calendar in ink? Is it gardening, like me? Playing music? Or just an hour of quiet with a cup of coffee? I read them all. Hit the like button if this story meant something to you. It helps others find it. And please, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's always tired, who's always on call. If you have your own story, something you've learned that could help someone else find their way, there's a form in the description. You might be featured here next. Your wisdom matters. A book that helped me frame this later in life was Necessary Losses by Judith Viorst. It's not about giving things up, but about choosing what to keep. There's a link in the description if you're interested. Don't wait for your guitar to go silent. Don't wait until your plants wilt. Your time, your spirit, your joy, they are not emergencies to be scheduled around everyone else's life. They are the life. Start today. Name your next Wednesday or your next hour. The person you were before you became everyone's first responder is still there. They're just waiting for you to pick up the phone and call them back.